Hello, you're here with T,
And Matthew,
and we are the Bing Zang Zoom podcast. Can you dig it? Now, speaking of digging things, first of all, it's been a little minute. Matthew, my brother, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I got a bit of a cough right now. The allergies are killing me, but aside from that, I'm doing good, man. How about you? You've had some life changes.
Oh yeah, there's a whole new little person walking around. Well, not walking around, but being carried around these parts. And yeah, it's interesting. Waiting 10 more years and then just saying, you know what, let's go ahead and throw a new one in the equation. New egg in the basket, shall we say.
No, I feel you. It's definitely one of those things. I work with a lot of kids, and it's crazy, like how fast they grow, their personalities at this age. They're people right from the get-go. And that sounds strange to say, but it's true. People think of babies as just babies, but they already come out with their whole personality and whole concepts and and ready to be themselves, which it's so much fun.
Oh yeah, now you can tell he's big time. Like he's a smiler. He puts a smile on people's faces. Like you just walk up to him and talk to him, and as soon as he finds you, he'll look around for a second, and as soon as he locks eyes with you, he's like, ah. It's kind of like Denzel, like my guy, like that. But yeah, uh, we always start this thing out with asking the question, "Can you dig it?" And that might be the question that one person might have to answer, as in, can you dig your grave, Jake Paul?
Oh,
Now,
snap.
to get into some details, Jake Paul decided that it would be a good idea that he's fought enough people that he feels confident enough to go one on one with the baddest man on the planet, Mike Tyson. Now, Mike Tyson, you know, the guy that's knocked out people in a flash, the guy that bit off Evander Holyfield's ear, that guy. That's the guy he wants to go head to head with. Uh, Thoughts?
Well, I mean, the thing is first of all, Mike Tyson's older now, right? It's not the same Mike Tyson that we knew. So there is that age difference and things like that. But his videos, like the things he's putting out, he still definitely got it. So, everybody's saying that the age difference is going to be a thing. It definitely is going to be a factor. You can't deny that. It is, how long you can go, how much energy you have, your stamina, things like that are definitely going to play into it. But Mike Tyson's one of the best for a reason. He's one of the hardest hitters for a reason. His peekaboo stance, always worked for him. And no matter what, it's going to be an interesting match. But the thing is Jake Paul, I mean, he's a fairly good boxer. But like we've talked about before, is he hasn't been fighting boxers for the most part. And when he did fight an actual boxer, he lost. Right? And so now going with Mike Tyson, who is again an actual boxer, we'll see how this goes. But I don't have a lot of faith in Jake Paul for this one. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's get into what they do well, right? What they do well. Mike Tyson, what he does well is KO people, right? His stats, he has 50 wins, and 44 of those wins have been by way of knockout. He has six losses, two no contests, Evander Holyfield. Uh,
Hmm.
and for Jake, Jake has nine wins in boxing contests, six of those by KO, and one loss. Now, Mike
Against
had,
random celebrities and not boxers, though.
yes, definitely against celebrities, and this is only the second boxer that he's facing, and
Yeah.
the first one didn't go his way, so we'll see what that brings. Um, Mike Mike Tyson has ferocious offense. His defensive tactics to get inside, he's going to make it Jake Paul miss, right? That's what he normally does. He makes him miss, and with every step, with every miss, he'll step inside and he'll get closer and closer and he'll start stalking. and that's just what Mike does. Uh, what I feel Jake Paul has is psychology.
Mm,
Jake Paul is very smart and picks and chooses his people very wisely, right? His opponents very wisely. One of the things that I noticed that he's done with Mike Tyson that is a little different from some of the other people that he's faced has been to take a more relaxed approach. So when Jake Paul was getting ready to face off against the MMA fighters and so on, he was way more aggressive. He spoke to them differently. He spoke to them with such confidence and this, that, and the third. With Mike, newfound Mike, this is for lack of a better term, mushroom Mike. And this Mike Tyson is a little calmer on the day to day, seemingly, and he is, more easily charmed, I shall say. And if you know Mike's story, you know that he's not one that's felt love and kindness and so on. So if Jake Paul takes that route, like he has been, being playful with Mike, being respectful to Mike, doing things like that, that kind of disarms Mike. And at the end of the day, it might make him not want to knock his block off, right? Then again,
that's a good point.
it is Mike Tyson still, so you never know. He might not want to knock him out, but he might want to take one of those ears with him.
Yeah, that was definitely a whole thing.
Let's see, like you said, Mike Tyson is 58 years old. Jake could take away that killer instinct. Yeah, it should be interesting. November, we'll see what happens.
I mean, and it's going to be huge too because I think they're still planning on streaming it on Netflix, right? So it's going
Yeah,
to be like, yeah, so it's going to be like, one of the, as opposed to being one of these that you have to pay for, whatever, people who already have Netflix can watch it. So it's going to be an insanely big event.
yeah, absolutely. So moving into another realm, recently we've seen the popularity of, you know, cheap cheap shopping options online. One of them that's really taken off has been Temu. Now, I find that interesting because apparently they took the same model that Amazon was using, and that model being, you know, if somebody else is selling the same product, we can sell it for cheaper and then
Mhm.
run that person out of business. And then once that person or that company is out of business, that's when we can hike the prices up because now we kind of have a monopoly on that product, right?
Right.
Uh, Temu did one lower. Like they're like, hey, look, if you can go low, we can go lower. Because guess what? We're not really all that concerned with the American dollar. I mean, the American dollar is great, but um, they'll take what they can get. Sometimes they'll give stuff away for free just to get people to sign up for the for Temu. So if you invite people, then you can get items for free. So Amazon, really is gonna have some competition here between Temu and Shein.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because like Temu, to me, they're the new Wish.com, right? You never know if you're actually going to get the product the way it looks on the website. You might get something in that's like a really massively cheap version, or who knows, you could get a really good deal. And it's kind of a gamble, right? Whereas Shein usually puts out good products, but it's been proven that they like stole designs and they copied other things. They're a generic brand version of other products, right? So it might look good, it might look nice, but there's a little bit of an ethical dilemma there. So personally, I try to stay away from Wish, Temu, or Shein, all of them.
I wonder if Temu, speaking of taking over and things, right? I wonder if Temu is supposed to be short for anything because if you're familiar with takeovers and Genghis Khan's nickname was Temujin.
Hmm.
Temujin. So Timu might be a little of a taking over kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it's just something to think
I
about.
mean, that's definitely a possibility that they could have got their name from it. But also, like I've heard Temu and then I've heard Temu. I've heard it pronounced like a lot of different ways. So I don't know. I say Temu because that just was what comes out naturally, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what the commercial says, but you never know.
Yeah, let's talk about Sparking Zero because they just a couple of days ago, from the time of recording this, put out the final roster announcement. So for those of you who don't know, Sparking Zero is the newest in the line of Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi games. So where they used to have the Tenkaichi uh, was a made-up name in the US and it was actually called Sparking in Japan. And so the whole point of this franchise, it's the new Dragon Ball game that's going to come out. The whole point of this franchise is to put as many characters as possible in it. And so, seemingly in the core game, although some of this might be DLC, it's a little bit confusing, but they've already announced 182 characters that are going to be available in this, plus a pre order character, plus they've already announced some DLC as well. So, when you put everything together, you're probably closer to about 190 different characters that you could play as in the Dragon Ball universe inside of this game. What do you think about that?
Is this game going to even work? 190 characters? I mean, man, that's a lot. That's a lot. So usually you might be given a little bit when you get a whole bunch. Are we giving up anything in any other categories? Is it going to be glitchy? Or was this the original plan the entire time? Hey, let's give them 190 and just let them have the most fun. I'm pretty sure that's got to be the most characters, individual characters in a playable characters in a video game ever. That has
I
to be the
wouldn't be
record.
surprised. I mean, it almost has to be some kind of record, right? And the thing is that, like I said, that there's 182 characters, but like I said, there's pre-order definitely getting more than that entirely. But as far as game modes, there's going to be 8 different characters that have story modes. There's going to be what if in the story modes where you can do what if scenarios. You can make your own story mode edition and each character, has their own voice, has their own dialogue, all these different things. So it's definitely a whole concept of interacting with different characters from different GT characters, with movie characters, with super characters, with OG Dragon Ball characters. They announced one OG character, and all these different worlds of Dragon Ball colliding in one game.
I'm appreciative of the longevity of Dragon Ball. This when we think about certain things, we think like uh think about how many things that we know of and that are still going today, like Marvel and so on, right? And then,
Mhm.
but while you're doing that, think about all the things that didn't go anywhere. VR Troopers, Beetleborgs, all these rip-offs and all these like shows that may have come before, but they just didn't have the right traction at the right time. And then something finally hits and it sticks. And yeah, Dragon Ball is the my first foray into Dragon Ball Z is the first foray for me into anime. That's the very first thing. It's the thing that brought me into it, and it's also the thing that has kept me into anime. It's really Dragon Ball Z based. So this is kind of crazy. This is real cool, and I don't doubt that that game is going to be in my house, whether my son gets to play it or not. If I get to it first.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, it's an exciting time for sure.
Now, speaking of older things and retro and things lasting for a long period of time, movies. I've noticed a pattern as of late, right? With these retro movies, these older movies getting re-released in theaters. Now, some of them are, they might play for just a day. For example, Batman, the 1989 Batman, the anniversary for that's coming up, and they're gonna show it on that day. And I think it's just that one day, and that's it. And then uh The Matrix, the original Matrix movie, they're doing one for that. That's gonna be in the theaters. So how do you feel about movies getting a re-release? And do you know anything about whether or not the studio gets a cut of that, or if that's just for the people and the theater itself?
So the studio definitely gets a cut of it. Absolutely, 100%. They do these re-releases and they still get, their box office cut and all this. The thing is that this has been something that's been going on for a while because they had what they call Fathom events, right? And a lot of times they'll put out anniversary movies, but typically you would see things like Wizard of Oz, which is great, to see it in theaters. My Fair Lady, like the Hollywood quote unquote classics, right? Which are they're all great movies and I love them, but we've gotten so far away from the 70s, 80s, 90s now that a lot of them are classics in their own rights. And so it's great to see things like you said, Batman or Back to the Future or Jaws or things that are not Hollywood Golden Age movies come back. There's also a lot of like specialty theaters that's been doing this for a while. There's two actually here in the Atlanta area that plays old movies. I just saw what's the name of the movie? Purple Rain with Prince in theaters just last week, and that was great. I'd never seen it before, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. They're doing what's the name of the movie? I Know What You Did Last Summer in a couple of weeks, and I'm gonna go see that. So it's fun to see these movies that maybe you weren't old enough to see, or maybe you just missed, or you just want to see again, right? In theaters in a new way, in a new age, in modern age. It's fantastic, and I'm all for it, especially with so many things getting dropped on streaming now. It's like, why not put old stuff in theaters? If new movies aren't going to theaters as much, why not put the old movies in there?
Yeah, I mean, we're recreating them anyways. We might as well. So at the end of the day, I think one of the things that you mentioned, like going to the theaters, the whole theater experience.
Mhm.
When you're watching something at home, it's a little different than when you're sitting there and you get the oohs and ahs, you get the jump scares, and you all get to experience that together. I think that that's really cool. Not to mention now you have all seen this movie, or maybe, a good portion of the audience has seen the movie, and now you're sitting there together to experience it. Like, oh, this is the part right here. This is the part that I remember when I was a kid. This is what made me want to put on a cape and jump out the window or something. Not
Yeah.
advising that. Please don't do that. Bing Zang Zoom does not advise that you put on a cape and jump out of a window. Thank you very much.
Good legal little thing there. Disclaimer. No, it's insane because the movie theater experience, like you said, being with an audience, being this, but just the smells of the popcorn, seeing it up on the big screen. Most movies should be larger than life. And looking up and seeing these grand people and these grand things up on the screen is the way a movie should be experienced. Now, I'm not saying that that's the only way you can enjoy a movie. Obviously, you can enjoy it from streaming, you can enjoy it from home, but it's a different and unique and arguably better experience to see them in a theater. And I like that this, especially like you said, recently, there's been this big resurgence maybe of putting these old movies in theaters that give you that experience.
This has been another edition of the Bing Zang Zoom podcast. We'll see you next time. Farewell.